Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Game Hub. I'm your host, Gamer K, and I've been going through a lot of different types of boss lists because watching another YouTuber I love, Josh Scorcher, the Fiery Joker, and all the different types of boss lists that he used to do, although now I don't think he's doing a lot of boss lists anymore. He's just doing like video game theme lists. I took a lot of inspiration from how I do my lists from watching him. Trying not to do a lot of the same lists, but at the same time, still wanted to put my own spin on these. And I know he did a list of boss fights that were where you actually had to try and die on. I decided to go take kind of inspiration of that and go for the worst of the bunch. The boss fights that feel like in an entire game where boss fights are absolutely beautifully designed, stunning to fight against, and a challenging level, they are absolutely the weakest bosses I've ever fought in video games. And I had to do a list on something like this because it's something fun. It's a list that nobody really thinks about. People always talk about the best bosses or the ones that are terrible. But what about the bosses that are absolutely so easy to do that it's almost hard to believe that they exist in a game where there's top tier level boss fights? So these are Gamer K's top 13 weakest bosses. And obviously, a couple rules. Obviously, rule number 1, games I've played and bosses I've played. Rule number 2, having a boss where you can easily cheese it by coming back. If it's a replayable boss fight where you can just beat it up with all your super powered upgrades and weaponry, don't count to the mix. These are bosses that are easy to beat on their first playthrough. I mean, yeah, you can somewhat die on them, but if they're really, really easy, then they are definitely on the list. And easy is a relative term that I'm trying to do for this. So, basically, the more a boss actually can put up a fight, the lower they are on the list. The bosses that are super easy to kill and barely does any damage to you whatsoever, and that's when they're trying, then they get higher up on the list. Rule number 3, no tutorial bosses nor bosses that are the first of the game, because those are supposed to be the ones that challenge you of what you learn about the game mechanics so far, but it's not on the level of being challenging enough where you actually have to put up a fight. So let's get these weaklings out of the way. These are Gamer K's top 13 weakest bosses. And why 13? Because here at the Game Hub, only the odd can be number 1. I don't think it's been a while since I've talked about Epic Mickey for a while. And the bosses in Epic Mickey are absolutely some of my favorites in the game, in gaming a little bit. They take a lot of the nostalgic of Disney with a lot of fun game mechanics. But the one that is absolutely the easiest one to beat out of the entire batch is the one and only boss fight from Tomorrow City? Yeah, Tomorrow City, Pete-tronic. Literally, all they did was just give Pete the Tron makeover. That's literally it. And he has gone a little crazy with power, so we gotta defeat him in order to get his pack, which is a essential rocket part. Now, there are 2 ways of beating him. You can as you do the actual Tron thing and knock back his disc at him a good number of times, he'll get weak and his canister on his back will be able to be filled up. If you go the thinner route, fill him up with thinner, and he'll basically go a little bit more ballistic and evil, and then he'll be portaled away, and then at the end of the game, it'll show that he's terrorizing the people of Tomorrow City. Fill him up with paint, and bits and pieces of his corrupted armor will disappear, revealing the good Petronic again. Now, one thing I do love about this boss fight is the atmosphere of it. It has the Tron look to it with the battling on top of Space Mountain building. So I do love that. And also it's kind of easy because all he does is just throw his disc and then throws thinner at some of the platforms on us. So we gotta watch where you are. This is the second boss in the game. It's not necessarily super easy, but you can. It is the weakest out of the bunch because it doesn't employ a bunch of heavy mechanics that you gotta use, like the TVs or the sketches that you use throughout the game with the other bosses. It's not easy in terms of its simpleness. I mean, it is simple, but it's the weakest boss of Epic Mickey because, again, it doesn't utilize a lot of the other mechanics in the game other than just the spin move, platforming, and your paint and thinner. So, not really that much to do about it. Okay, in terms of difficult and bosses, nothing gave me a little bit harder time than Persona 5. And no, I never played Royale. I just played the original version because I already went through it once. I'm not doing it again, and the bosses are even harder. But thinking of this list, I want to do a lot of other bosses of games that I do talk about a lot, but something that can fit in this category. And no boss in the Persona 5 game hits the term weakest of the bunch. And again, this was a difficult choice because there are so many amazing villains in the game, and the boss fights are amazing as hell. But if I had to pick the weakest of the bunch, it's time for a trip to the bank as we see Junya Kaneshiro, the greed boss of the game. No, the gluttony boss of the game. A mobster who's soliciting minors into giving him money and framing them for crimes unless they pay up exorbitant amounts. Dear Lord, I do like that this game made adults look terrible, and there are evil people like that in the world half the time. But going to his boss fight where we finally get him at the vault within his floating bank. He's not the strongest fighter, where he doesn't have a big monstrous form like Madarame or Kamoshida in the previous boss fights. He just sprouts fly wings and has bug eyes and acts like a fly. I get it. The sin of gluttony is usually seen as a fly. I get it. But his boss fight is pretty simple to begin with, until he opens the vault and releases a giant robotic piggy bank. Persona writers, what made you think of this? And this thing does a hell of a lot of damage, from its laser beam eyes to him rolling on it in order to bowl us over. It's a challenge to begin with, but then when you realize once it's said that you can use any of the items that you have to lure him out of the piggy bank and then hit the piggy bank in order to bowl over him. The Royale version added 2 other shadow guards to help attack, but even then, it's honestly not the strongest boss fight of Persona 5. Yeah, Fly on Dirty Money got swatted really, really quickly. And I never thought I'd have to talk about 3 days again for a good long while, but here we are. Literally one of the weakest bosses in Kingdom Hearts. I wanted to go somewhat off the rails with this, but I didn't want to do Lock, Shock, and Barrel as easy as they are. I'm going for bosses that aren't supposed to be easy. You know, that's something that gives us a bit of challenge when we fight it. Not just a simple lower their health and then capture them in the on the boxes. Nothing like that. No gimmick-like things, sections that are boss fights, technically. So I wanted to go into something that gave us one of the hardest bosses of Dream Drop Distance, which was Rinzler. I mean, Sora having a heart-to-heart fight with the badass Rinzler as he whoops our ass on the floor, on the digital floor, makes him a great boss fight. On the flip side, we have Commantus for Riku's boss fight, and it is a joke. The Commantus looks really, really cool. The Dream Eater, a computerized mantis that moves and acts like a digital a virus, but it is boring. First, we fight it on the light cycle, which, okay, is kind of cool. We have to damage it from the front with our lasers and on the back with our light ribbon, which, again, is cool. But then we get to the actual boss fight at the end of the level, and all it does, almost all it does, is fidget around and go in a circle and also going Beyblade on us and attacking us. And then it'll try to heal itself, but with the hacking command reaction that we have, we can easily stop it, and it's paralyzed for a little bit. Rinzler took me about 5 tries when fighting it, both in the DS, 3DS, and in the PlayStation version. Commantus, on the other hand, took me about 1 try on the 2 tries in the 3DS and 1 try in the frickin' PlayStation. And as the problem is, it's cool, but in terms of the other roster of Kingdom Hearts, it is definitely one of the lowest ones on the list. It only escaped being on this. It almost escaped being on this list because I was considering other weaker bosses from Kingdom Hearts. But when you think about it, this is like, it's the same. Like I said, it's the same level that gave us Rinzler, and he was a challenge. He was more challenging than almost anything in Dream Drop Distance. So when you scale them together, you can definitely see what the weaker half is. So there's that. It's kind of ironic I'm weighing my options with this list, considering that's what number 10 is. From Mega Man Star Force, we get a lot of good bosses from the Mega Man Star Force series. Some of them are okay at worst, and some of them are amazing and challenging at best. And then there's Libra Scales. For context, fourth act of Mega Man Star Force 1, Geo finally goes to school after being encouraged by Mitch Shepard, the teacher, who ironically has 2 science flasks hanging from his neck. Yeah, another thing about the Capcom games is that any character that is going to become evil in some way in the Mega Man series is freaking obvious. But when Shepard refuses by the principal to use the new study wave that basically forces kids to learn, technology that makes kids learn. This is definitely not futuristic. It's more of a fantasy. Because Shepard wants to have kids have fun as well as learn. But he's doesn't want to do it because he sees the value of learning and not forcing the kids to learn. There's more important things than test scores. Sadly, the principal decides if he doesn't, he will be fired. And Shepard has a lot of kids to feed. And having to balance his ethics versus keeping his kids happy brings forth Libra, an Femian who is obviously a scale. Alright, honestly, this could be a cool thing, having an entire character based on balancing, and maybe his attack would be cool. And then when he becomes Libra Scales, he's basically juggling fire and water together. again, this could be cool. This could be really, really cool. Until we get to his boss fight, and it's plain fucking easy. A thing in the Mega Man series is if you know if you announce what element you are, you're basically announcing that what your weakness is, and he has too. The rings on his center will change color as he's about to do an elemental attack. So it'll turn blue for water and red for fire. So all you gotta do is have water, electric, and fire and water chips, and you're easy. And the only other attacks he does is when he does a swing, where he swings his weights at you, or he'll drop a heavy weight on you once in a while. The thing why he's a weak boss is because he's got easy, predictable, and guardable attacks. Two elemental weaknesses in one boss. And that's pretty much it for Libra Scales. There's not a lot to say about him, but he's definitely the weakest boss in the Mega Man Star Force series. But Libra, you weigh out your options, and at least you're on the lower half of this loser list. Yep, I finally fucking played Devil May Cry 5 this year at one of my friends' insistences, and also technically my insistence because Angry Joe gave it such a good review. And it is a banger game. It is amazing. I am not a Devil May Cry fan in the slightest, but that game plus the Netflix series definitely gives me an appreciation for this amazing series of hack and slash with amazing music. But now I gotta shit on it a little bit because of one particular aspect. Like I said, the weakest boss in the game. And ironically, it's not fought by Nero or Dante. That's right. We get a V boss fight for this. And the one thing that made this, I'm going to say why this entry is a little bit confusing for me. For one thing, it's the Needhog boss. This parasitic monster that is so fucking disgusting. And again, we fight him as V with Griffin, Shadow, and Nightmare. And again, learning V's controls with using all three of his familiars is challenging enough. And I had a lot of challenge with it the first time. But fighting the Needhog boss, I was expecting a lot more than just this parasitic leech just using its tendrils at us, and every time we damage them, they'll lay on the floor, and then we use V's cane to finally destroy them, and which brings out the Needhog, and we just gotta keep beating them up. Like Griffin says, the Needhog, dumb as a sack of rocks, and again, this is one of the only bosses when I didn't have a lot of problems. And that's kind of my point of weakest bosses. It's just standing there half the time, and the tendrils are the ones actually doing a lot of the work. And again, with these controls being so different from Dante and Nero, that definitely sets the tone. I mean, the other bosses that V fights are a little bit more challenging, and I died on a lot of them. But again, the Needhog is basically here on the list as a parasite, leeching off of what all the other good bosses are in this game. So yeah, I'm just going to say I'm honestly looking forward to the final season of Devil May Cry Netflix. And if they ever finally get in Devil May Cry 6, I'll definitely be on the lookout for it. It's been years since I've talked about you. How is it that a lot of the Sonic spin-off, like not spin-offs, but story games like this and Black Knight and Unleashed have some of the weirdest bosses ever? And taking the spot of Secret Rings as the weakest boss, it's not that much of a problem considering there's only like 5 bosses in the game, in this entire game, and a lot of what we do is just freaking run missions, which suck. Okay. I'm getting, okay. What I thought was going to be an amazing, really fun boss fight was the XIII, a giant mechanical fire-based monster that Eraser Jin really unleashes on us in order to stop us in this mechanical furnace room, which is really, really cool. And seeing this thing come out of the lava was really, really cool. But it's, yeah. The entire boss fight is you running around in a circle, hitting the Ifrit's arms until it's stunned, and then it slouches, and then you speed dash up its arm, hit its head. You do this a good number of times, and the boss fight is over. The only threat here is the platform sinking into the lava and you getting hurt. The Ifrit practically does nothing, and this is a somewhat mid-of-the-game boss, which makes me... It was so tempting to put one of the other two bosses on this list, because you just run after them and everything. But at least those ones are at least challenging. The Ifrit is as challenging as me punching a peanut to open it. There's no risk here. So once again, Sonic the Hedgehog Secret Rings. Great atmosphere, great story, great characters, but boss fights, it sucks. And the Ifrit is a pure example of that. So let's continue on to more weaklings. Technically, he is a start boss, kind of. He's not the first boss of the game. He's the third, but it's early on. But he's still absolutely ridiculously weak. From one of my favorite games, Puppeteer, we have the Skeevy Sales Rat, General Rat. This guy is as threatening. Actually, you know what? No, he's not threatening. And his boss fight definitely isn't interesting in the slightest. He rides on a jetpack, releasing his purple ooze that he's been releasing throughout the Moonwood that infects every plant life and every creature there. And you think that this would be something really, really, really fun as he's flying on top of the two cedar tree characters that are infected with his purple goop. But what this boss fight makes it even worse is the fact that Rat will occasionally run down the screen and come in a direction, throw a bomb at him, and it'll explode. Then all you gotta do is throw bombs at all the purple gunk spots on the cedar trees. Do that while avoiding his attacks, and then it will go to the falling leaves where you slice him up and slice his jetpack. You don't even give him a quick time event. With the exception of him and Monkey, all of the main bosses in Puppeteer get a cool quick time event scene. But no, we got one at the start of, at the first chapter of the game, but we don't get one here. And then we get a long boss fight, which is basically just a level, and then a quick time event with Snake, where Snake eats Rat, and then Rat finally gets to the Moon Bear King to try to spin this story somehow, and we don't even get to kill the stupid slimy Rat. Moon Bear King strangles in himself out of frustration. So it's not even a boss fight that has a good ending. It's a boss fight where we don't even kill the boss. And that is something that makes it even more annoying than it is actually going to be. So yeah, even though it's my favorite game, like I said, even though I love these games, there's always the one unlucky one in the batch that is obviously the worst, and it's General Rat. Weak as his short stature, out of all of his generals, Okay, so I've only played the Sly Cooper games once in my life, and it's this year because I got the entire collection at a store that was closing, and I love the games. I'm surprised I never played them when I was younger, although the swamp level, that giant snake, would have definitely made me terrified. And also the Contessa scenes and the dark, any level that was dark at the time. But overall, I'm a Sly Cooper fan now. I am all for it, and I can't wait to talk about it. I was holding off doing lists with with Sly Cooper involved because I wanted to review the games first, but I can't wait anymore. And and I know when you think of Sly Cooper and the weakest boss fights, there are some that come to mind. Like, for me, it's a late game boss fight, and it is absolutely shocking that how is it that the most awesome looking member of the Fiendish Five, Clockwork excluded, is the weakest boss in Sly Cooper 1. And he's the fourth boss of the game. How? I died more on Raleigh and Mugshot and Miss Ruby a lot of times. I even died at Clockwork's final boss too. But Panda King, I beat him in one fucking go. Because his attacks are so predictable and telegraphed. Not only that, but he doesn't even do anything other than once we hit him a couple of times, he just pushes us back and then starts throwing fire at us that is so telegraphed and easy to dodge. I beat him up without even trying. And that's one of the most incredible things. Also, the fact that they bring this back for Sly Cooper 3 as a dream section, and unless you say the right things, the boss fight will continue. Of all the things to bring back, this is what you do. And yeah, again, I like the Panda King. He's a cool character in the first game and in number 3. But in terms of being intimidating with a boss fight, it's not for a late boss fight and him being super easy to defeat is insane. That's why he's on this list. How the hell could Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions give us these incredible boss fights for these villains, for the amazing and unique rogues gallery that they gave us with 4 different dimensions? Oh, and yeah, I said mid of the road or near the end of the game boss fights weak. I didn't think I'd have to put the Goblin from the final Noir level of Shattered Dimensions as the weakest boss in this game. It's insane. Obviously, Norman Osborn gets the fragment and becomes this grotesque monster. And here's the thing. They made a giant glowing red spine his weak spot. We can punch him all we want, but we gotta get him from behind. And then in the final part of this entire... And here's the thing. Whereas all the other bosses in this game at least get either one other outing before they get the fragment power to attack Spider-Man, all we do with Goblin is just a quick moment during his level where we hit him, and then he gets us, and then we hit his back, and then he runs. So we don't even get, he only has one boss fight in this game, where every other villain has at least 2 to 3. And it's in the big top, where after we hit him a good number of times and get behind him, he turns off the lights, where we got to sneak behind him. And then he brings in henchmen for us to fight with him. That is the lamest thing ever, when a boss calls out the weaker henchmen in order to fill up the gaps in the boss fight. These are the boss fight. These are the same people that gave us Vulture and Hammerhead for this section, for the noir section. And they make the big bad villain Osborn, the Goblin, the weakest thing ever. And he's the final before we do Mysterio and all the other final level bosses. He is the weakest in Shattered Dimensions, and that is the most painful thing of all time. Oh, good God, please. Spider-Man Marvel 3, don't make Goblin so pathetic. Please, I'm begging you. And I've only beaten Spyro the Dragon in the Reignited trilogy because I played the game when I was younger. I wasn't really that good at it, and it was challenging as hell. So I never got past World 2. But in terms of bosses, Spyro 2 has the least amount of consistency, because either they don't do anything, they're exceptionally easy, and you spend more time fighting the environment and the enemies in said level than actually fighting the boss and making it difficult. So the one I'm talking about is the boss of Magic Crafter's Blowhard. This weather wizard, no, not that one, who just sits there doing nothing, waits for us to flame him, and then runs. Honestly, I don't think I've seen him do... And we go through the level, defeat some of the wizards, manipulating the platforms and everything, and then we finish him off. I don't think I saw him do one frickin' attack the entire time I played the level. And I had to go back in it again just to replay it again and get 100%. But it's insane how easy it is. And again, middle of the way boss. But you know what? I can't really fault the creators of this really, really old game of having to revamp these bosses but make them non-threatening. It's like a fart in the wind. It's not even it's not great. And he's only number 4 because so many three other bosses are weaker and easy to do than him. I mean, again, at least the environments give some form of challenge. Wow, these other bosses, it's just lame. Another technical elemental type boss fight for this week list. Super Mario Galaxy 1, where everyone enjoys a lot of the boss fights. And I really love these bosses. I really, really do. I mean, Bouldergeist was good. Mega Leg was amazing. But in trying to find one of the weakest bosses in Mario Galaxy 1, it's not that challenging to do so. Baron Burr of the Freeze Flame Galaxy. This guy doesn't even attempt to hit you. But verbatim, we find him on a pillar where we got to use the ice flower to create platforms on the water and then jump up to fight him. Get knocked down, and we got to get another one and go up again. We spin near him, and he's helpless. Hit him 3 times, and he'll start shooting ice out of his crown. But what makes this boss super easy is the fact he doesn't even move. He stays right on top of that peak. He doesn't move throughout the section of the level where we're fighting him. He just stays up there. And this is a boss, mind you. And even though Mario Galaxy has some of the most easiest bosses to beat. This one gets the number 3 spot as the weakest boss in general for basically being almost non-existent. Final boss, DLC, in a game where boss fights are practically almost non-existent. I can't believe I'm bringing this one up again. Assassin's Creed III, The Tyranny of King Washington. Definitely one of my better DLCs I've reviewed of Assassin's Creed. And I'm still pissed off that I still have 1 episode left to go for reviewing. But anyway, the final battle against the tyrannical King Washington. And this kind of visionary alternate world where he became obsessed with the power of the piece of Eden and became a tyrannical king. It's easy. It is the easiest thing they could have done, and they went for it. They fucking went for the easiest thing to do. Washington on the top of his goddamn pyramid. Connor, we finally confront him, and the boss fight begins, where he releases his light orbs at us in circles to attack us. And I'm going to tell you guys right off the bat, if you die at this boss fight, you have either not been using your animal abilities that you gained through this game, which is honestly fucking amazing. I hope future games work on something like this. You are easily tricked, and you didn't notice anything in the previous fights with him. And this, again, with the exception of the number 1 entry, is the weakest boss fight I've ever played in my goddamn life. Because it took me no time at all to figure out how to do it. Light orbs? Go wolf and turn invisible and sneak around him because he doesn't even see you. Sneak up behind him, attack him. He creates light shockwaves, go eagle mode, fly at him, and beat the shit out of him. And what do you do to final? Somehow, the good King George thought a giant glass ceiling was needed. Because we run to each to the corners of this, we go use our bear power and use shockwave to break it, and the boss fight ends. That's it. That's fucking it. I had more challenge trying to kill Thomas Hickey with the 100% with the 100% restriction than fighting this boss fight. I'm glad that the tyranny of King George was a fake illusion, because if this is the best the Apple of Eden could produce for us, I got nothing. This is why Assassin's Creed isn't really known for its boss fights that much. But that pales in comparison. At least he put up a fight. This next one is so easy. You all probably know what I'm talking about when I think of the weakest boss fights ever in video games. In a video game series that has given us monumentally impressive boss fights, absolute cinematic brilliance in terms of boss fight and cinematography. To have one boss fight be the weakest link in a golden chain of boss fights. I am talking about Electrocutioner from Batman Arkham Origins. Nope! Not even close. From God of War 3, we have...
Armies! I told you I was ready to run them rounds, fuck boy!
Yeah, Hermes. Guys, you had everything handed. You gave us Poseidon as a tutorial boss. You gave us Hades as our second boss. Meh with the Helios, but then you gave us Hermes. And then you gave us Hercules. Like, I was debating whether or not to put either Helios or Hermes on this number one slot. But Helios got on this list for at least, okay, yeah, we basically just have to use the Cyclops to break his shield of warriors and everything. And that stupid moment where we're blocking the sun from his mouth, that's simple. But at least you can get challenged with that. Hermes is literally nothing. To quote Kratos, to catch a fly from the ass of Zeus is not worth my time, Hermes. And after he says that, I checked. Kratos doesn't say another word to Hermes throughout this entire section. Hermes is criticizing Kratos for his dead family and everything he's done while running away from us. He runs up the chain in the underworld from where the labyrinth is, taunting us. And then he meets us in the room where the flame is, and then runs away from us. And then we get his boss fight, where we're in a small room, and he's running around, barely hitting us. You heard me. A speedster barely hitting us. I hate to steal from a shit game, but at least in Suicide Squad, the Flash creates tornadoes. Like, where was that? And we don't even get like a badass QTE after hitting him. We chop off his leg and then grab him and slice off the other one to get his boots. Oh my God. Hermes is literally the easiest boss in this fucking game. Gaming in general. Because he barely hits you. Barely even hits you. He just runs around, tries to punch us. And it's mid-game. How do you do a cheap-ass boss fight with a speedster that poorly? You made the Flash boss fight from Suicide Squad look great, and he was technically the first boss. And you guys made him look better than the god of speed. Like, what the fuck, guys? What? Oh my God. I can't even anymore. Hermes deserves to be the weakest boss in general because of lack of creativity, the fact that he doesn't even hurt you. Like, it is, you have to, like, I gotta go back and watch Josh Scorcher's video of the bosses you have to try to die, because I want to see if Hermes is on there. It's been a couple years. Because you have to physically leave your controller there and just watch him kill you. That's how weak he is. Oh my God. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was the list for my weakest bosses. I hope you guys somewhat enjoy this list. Tell me if I was a little off the mark with some of these. Like, comment, subscribe down below, and join me next week where I go for another Funko figurine of the future King of the Pirates as we set sail into what the live action can produce. This is Gamer K, logging out.